Thanks, gentlemen. Now I'm going to give you the opportunity to make an opening statement before we go to questions. So, Mr. Wild, you want to kick off?
Thank you. My name's Ian Wild. I'm the president of the Livestock and Rural Transporters Association of Queensland. Here with me today is Mark Collins, the vice president of our association. Just a little background on me. I've been in the livestock transport industry for 45 years, and my father was a drover before that, and trucks were a natural progression from his days. Mark is a trade qualified mechanic who thought that there was better things than being covered in grease, and he thought cow manure might have been that. So we've had a long association with the rural industry. The LRTA is the peak association in Queensland representing the trucking industry, the rural trucking industry in the agricultural supply chain, and we've close to 100 members of all sizes, from owner-drivers, small fleet owners through to large fleets based in Queensland servicing multiple states. The LRTA is a member of the Australian Livestock and Rural Transporters Association, and we support the comprehensive submission that the ALRTA has lodged with the inquiry. It might look like I've got a lot to go through here, but my wife has made it in big print for me.
Well, Mr. Wild, you make sure you don't miss anything, because you don't want to get in trouble when you get home.
Oh, yes. Viability, safety, sustainability and efficiency are among the key concerns for the LRTAQ. While we are not an industrial organisation, we support the correct payment of award rates and superannuation and allowances. We would support an investigation into compliance rates along with targeted education and enforcement as necessary. We do, however, feel that owner-drivers should not be subject to industrial laws in the same fashion as employee drivers, especially general and rural carriers. Rural and general carriers usually work for multiple customers. The rural supply chain operates very differently from other road transport supply chains. Very little work of the rural carriers is done under an ongoing written contract, where jobs become available on short notice on an ad hoc basis that you have to think on the run sort of thing. I'm here, that job's come up, I'll do that. Small rural carriers share work constantly, changing roles from I could be the lead on that job today, using Mark's crew to help me, and tomorrow he could be the lead on the job and I could be helping him, and that's the way the rural transport industry works. So our trucks are our offices, and we have to be able to organise and accept offers as we go along. We don't have to the luxury of being able to send it back to an office a lot of the time. Communication technologies can be poor in the rural areas, and so work is usually organised verbally and done on that basis, the basic old handshake. It's a short notice, low red tape flexibility that enables us to move seasonally unpredictable farm produce as efficiently as possible. As was said during the break, that COVID-19 has been a wonderful invention for the general rural transport industry, that a lot of us don't have enough trucks and enough drivers available to do the work that's put in front of us.
And you're specialised, of course, too.
Pardon?
I say, and you're specialised. You're a specialised fleet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our experience with the RSRT taught us that over-regulation of small operators in our sector can be disastrous, even when it's well-intentioned. but that's not to say that there are not problems that need attention. We face unfair competition from primary producers who can access discounted registration and fuel to carry their own produce, but then turn around and cart for hire. And occasionally you'll find that, oh, I can do it with my truck for this much, why can't you? Well, I pay bigger registration than you do. We need to tighten rules to govern concessional schemes and targeted enforcement at a level that actually deters non-compliance. It'd take a huge fine or a very high likelihood of being caught to overcome the economic incentive to break the rules when the registration and fuel discount are worth so much to them, or so little to them really, that more than $10,000 a year annually.
I was going to ask, can I call you Ian? Can we be less?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Just be a little bit less formal. I was keen to hear that. That's the difference. And $10,000 is quite a substantial
Yes.
amount, yeah.
A bogey drive body truck tipper in Queensland on primary producer registration is $490.
So a bogey rigid.
Yes.
So 12, 14 tonner, that's what we're talking
Yes,
about?
yes.
Okay, all right.
Is
$490 rego for the year.
Yes. If
I've been paid that since the 70s.
If he registered to tow a dog trailer,
Yeah.
it was $460, so he went and bought himself a dog trailer.
It's cheaper.
It's cheaper to register to tow a dog trailer than it is to tow a body truck. It'll just be a body truck.
Okay, all right. Have I got that dazed look about me?
Yes. And my registration costs I run an 8-wheeler body truck and dog trailer, and my registration costs an ice cream under $13,000.
Oh, because you're for reward
Commercial
hire.
hire.
Yeah. Whoa. That's more than 10,000.
Yes.
Gee, it's $12,500.
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you.
Roads, many parts of rural and regional Australia are unsafe and unproductive. We pay the same registration and fuel tax as the East Coast runners, but we don't have the same level of service with our road infrastructure. Even new roads are not built to a standard; they're built to a price, and the price is a very cheap one. Long-term maintenance costs become so high that it really is impractical to consider doing a new road because of the constant upgrading that needs to be done on it, instead of building a good road to start off with, and less maintenance would be a far more beneficial thing to the government. We're required by law to adhere to fatigue and animal welfare rules, but there are few rest areas and roadside amenities for us to be able to pull up at, as Gary alluded to in his statement, that between here and Gympie there is no formal rest area for a truck to pull up. TMR consider that the service stations are providing that for us to be able to
This
pull
would
up.
be the Burping Gary?
Yes.
Yes, this was brought to my attention yesterday, so that's why. Keep going, Ian, yeah. I think it's important because the department will be coming in next, and I'm keen to ask the department.
Yes.
How do they go about getting truck drivers? But anyway, keep going. Or rest areas.
And livestock owners don't necessarily prepare their animals prior to transport, so that we're left with an effluent problem then.
Yeah.
And when you go and pull up at a place like a service station for a camp or a feed or a shower, and there's a caravan parked beside you, I have had occasion where the caravan has come and tapped on the door, "Can you move?" So
Can we get in there? But let's explore that a bit further because I'm aware of what you guys do. That's why I came furniture because I didn't want to have it. Yeah, anyway, so, but one thing that used to motivate me was when a stock crate pulled in the same truck bay. I thought it might be time to get up and get going. It was stinging hot and the windows were open, and that's with the greatest of respect, my stomach's not as strong as you guys. But that is a very important issue because you see, not only we know that there's a serious lack of amenities in this nation, there's a serious lack of heavy vehicle rest areas, and I will say this, and I don't care which grey nomads I upset, you know, they get fantastic facilities. I'll talk about the West. They get facilities where they get toilet long drops and all that, you know, and then they'll go in and crowd in our trucking bays, and I've heard stories of fridge motors being turned off and all sorts of shenanigans, and I don't believe grey nomads should be anywhere near our rest areas. No. I'd go as far as saying, put up the, you know, the caravan with a red circle and a sign, get out, it's a truck bay. But you guys have got that unique problem because sure as hell when you're travelling through the suburbs en route to ports or something, I think you'd probably have a lot of people who'd be dying to dob you in because there's effluents coming off the back of trailers.
Yes,
So let's talk a bit more about that. What facilities do you have?
There's none in Queensland.
None in Queensland?
No roadside effluent dump sites in Queensland. We've gone as far as we can in the livestock transport game where we've fitted catch tanks to our trailers. We've enclosed our trailers to a safe animal welfare standard. But once your effluent catch tanks are full and they're roughly a 350 litre capacity, you have 30 cows on the bottom deck of an A double, of a B double, sorry. Yeah. It doesn't take very long to fill 350 litres of effluent. So
you guys would have done the homework to provide, and please pull me up if I get it wrong, but one would think in 2020 you'd have, and this is not just specific to Queensland, but you think that predominantly the majority of your freight comes from the west and the north. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then you'd have movements between New South Wales and Queensland.
Yes.
So to build a proper facility, just for you guys, where you could offload the effluent before you hit the suburbs or the port or wherever you're going, what would it cost if the land was available?
If the land was available, I would think it would be in the vicinity of around $300,000 for the equipment to make it work.
And then we've got to put it in bitumen.
That would be a grid and a settling pond type affair would somewhere around that $300,000. With that, that's excluding road upgrading to have a deceleration lane, a hard stand area, and an acceleration lane.
Well, in comparison to what you pay through taxing your fuel and GST and all sorts of other things, it's not a lot of money. And what, sorry?
And road user charge.
Yes, I know everyone's doing somersaults because the road user charge has been frozen, hasn't been reduced. It's just been, I don't get so excited, but I did acknowledge that to the Assistant Minister, Scott Buckholz. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. But coming back to that, is there any other states, Ian, that have got these facilities?
No, not on a road, not on a main thoroughfare. There are. Horsham, I think, in Victoria has put in an effluent dump site at the sale yards, or is putting in.
That's if you're going in the sale yard.
That's in the sale yard, but there's nothing on a roadway. In New Zealand, there's effluent dump sites on the sides of the main roads, of the main livestock transport roads, all over the place that are funded by the government, because they only have a shire and government system there, not a three-tiered system like us. So
well, there you go. That's probably got to get rid of one tier of government. You're right. I'm in. Okay. I know which one I'd like to get rid of.
But the shire levies a fee on all the ratepayers, and that goes towards the installation and maintenance of the effluent dump site. All the shires do that, so all the carriers are paying, and the farmers are paying to ease a problem.
Okay, so we don't have that. So you travel through the suburbs, and what's the problem with that? Or you travel through build-up areas. So tell us what happens.
Effluent dumps drops out of the trucks going up the hills. There's a lovely green path up over, I call it Kingston Hill, but it's not Kingston Hill, heading down to Beanley Meatworks. The locals complain about the driving along behind us and getting cow manure up underneath their cars, and they get to smell it for a few days, especially when the car gets hot. It is a danger, especially to the likes of motorbikes, that if they happen to cross a track of wet manure, they could lose control of the motorbike.
So, could I just ask, where do you drop it now? When you've finished the journey, where do you...
At the abattoir, most of the abattoirs here in the southeast corner have got wash bays.
Yeah.
Or the likes of Kilcoy Abattoir, they've got a dedicated dump facility at their ramp. So when the trucks are unloading, they open their catch tanks and let them drain while they're unloading their trucks, and then close the tanks up once they've finished unloading. Give the tank a little swill, and then close it up, and then away they go again.
Just to clarify that, most abattoirs have facilities to accept our effluent, but it's a one truck bay. So when you're unloading 3 or 4 trucks in a space of half an hour, you can't afford the luxury to sit there and wait while another truck empties his tanks and possibly washes out, because that could be an hour and a half to wash out. So you invariably end up leaving with your tank still full.
Yeah. And do you do live export out of here?
At Brisbane is a live export port. What are
Not
we?
regularly. Not regularly. Not as regularly as north.
Okay. And you have the facilities at the port?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
Right.
no.
Effluent's a dirty word in the government's mind.
I'm thinking of all the analogies we can wrap our tongues around here, but I'll...
Come on.
No. So, but look, the livestock associations, the livestock transport associations, are no shrinking pilots, and you've been around the lobbying game for a long, long time. But governments just aren't interested? Or?
No.
I'm not picking any form of government. I mean, there's been both colours of government. Parties have been in government all 50 years, but yet can't get anywhere.
No, nobody has a particular appetite to.
Well, and why is that? Is there something secret about these ponds that?
Probably.
What's the reason?
Cost.
Cost?
Just cost? Is that it?
And probably liability is a big thing these days.
You wonder that there's not money in it now, with
There is.
biogas plants.
Yes, there is. Harvesting the effluent for composting or generating electricity from. There's plenty of ways of making money out of shit.
New Zealand have a distinct advantage, too, that farmers can access those holding tanks. Most of them are actually holding tanks in New Zealand, not so much open air ponds anymore.
Okay.
They went down the track of open air ponds, but they weren't as successful as the closed-in tank. So the advantage New Zealand has over us is the farmers can access that effluent and actually pump it onto their paddocks as fertiliser. Whereas we're a bit more restricted with seed and weed problems.
Right.
So that process can't happen as easily. Basically, the effluent's got to be processed before we can turn into fertiliser, and then becomes a cost again.
Yeah. Well, I did cut you off, sorry, as you were going through the challenges, because I am very keen, Senator McDonald and I are very keen to hear what are the challenges within the livestock industry. And more importantly, this committee, we're looking for solutions. Bearing in mind, and you did say with the RSRT, and we don't need to go down the old path, there's a lot of things we could have done a lot better, but the ALRT were very supportive of some form of, can we just get cost recovery?
Yes.
And I think if we peel that all back and get back into our respective corners and come back out again saying, it's a great industry, but we have got challenges.
Every industry has its challenge.
Sure.
And all we need to do is to talk and listen and act on the advice that's given. We know how our business is run. and most of us are loath to have interference from a bureaucrat that has basically no knowledge which end of the cow
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
does the eating. And
Even I know.
that, yes. Anyway, going on. Chain of responsibility is a hell of a headache for the rural transporters because the chain is a one-link chain at the moment. It's only us. It's not there's not the before and not the after being captured in the chain of responsibility, and we're having to foot the bill for the upgrading of our technology, our businesses to cover chain of responsibility, but we're the only ones that are going to be penalised for it. So
Why's that?
nobody's got an appetite to chase somebody further up the line, or
Is that because you're dealing with single operator farmers? Is that what it is, or?
Oh,
Sorry,
no.
I'm completely. I have no idea. No, it's not. I'm not setting you up for a whack or anything. Just
I'd say
wondering why.
the cost and the risk is probably the deterrent.
The cost and the risk of having chain of
Yeah,
responsibility.
involved in a major investigation. So the cost and the risk of having a major investigation and not to be able to win that challenge.
it's easy.
Probably
It's easy
tourism.
to put to have the evidence there on the transport company, but it's very hard to get evidence against, in our case, a farmer or a feedlot or an abattoir or a port authority or something like that further up the line. So I go we're the bunny in the middle, and we get the kick. And the same thing happens with animal welfare. That those that handle the stock before us beast was fine when we saw it, and those that handle the beast after us, well, that's how it arrived to us. So it had to be. And nobody's prepared to stand up and admit that that beast was faulty to start off with, because if they admit that was faulty, they've admitted fault and they can be prosecuted. And no investigation goes any further on that basis.
So just on that, I mean, during the drought years, certainly I know a lot of graziers were very grateful to their livestock truckers because, you know, they loaded cattle that were only just fit to load.
Yes.
And then nursed them down to either agistment or sale yards or slaughter. And so it's a very important industry to share that responsibility.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying, that when push comes to the shove, you're the ones holding
Everybody
the
bolts
stock.
and leaves us standing there holding
Yes.
holding the
Little baby, so
crippled
to
cow.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'd be better off at times reverting back to the old deeming provisions that allowed regulators to issue an infringement to all chain parties, and then first conducting a full investigation. Infringed parties could still take the matter to court, but it would be up to them to prove they had no influence on the offence occurring, which makes sense given they know more about their own circumstances than a regulator could. In addition to problems and solutions, as just outlined, there are some low-hanging fruit that governments can take target of rapidly to improve safety, productivity and fairness. For example, governments could roll out proven low-cost safety infrastructure such as rumble strips, wider median strips, improved road shoulders. A little war story, the flood recovery money earlier in 2000 and when was that work done, Mark, out at Morven, Augathella? Mid-2000s. The old road, you drive down it and there's the shoulders of the road, there's the fog line. When you get onto the new piece of road, the shoulders are not even as wide as the fog line on the old road. And there's no warning of that happening. If you're a newcomer to the road, you don't know that the road's actually getting narrower just there, and it suddenly happens just there. It doesn't progressively come in, it just suddenly happens there. And why would that be?
I'll tell you why. This is the world according to Still. I'll entertain myself for 30 seconds. The problem we have in this nation, I believe, is that when it comes to road infrastructure, the biggest flaw we have is that governments don't come and consult with those who are going to be using the damn thing. And I find this so frustrating. That all this infrastructure and you get scissors the size of a bloody 40-foot trailer all being prepared so the pollies can all cut the ribbon. And yet no one has sat down with the transport industry and look, we're not that big a nation. There's a number of representative bodies. We know who they all are. You can count them all on one hand.
Yep.
It's not hard, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, they're quick to come and consult with you when they want to change fatigue management, or they want to put another impost or a levy on, or they want to increase taxation, or they want more of our fuel, take more out of our fuel for whatever. So that's my belief.
Yeah.
If you come and talk to the people that do the damn thing, it's amazing how we can, add a sign here, put a strip there, whatever. As you said, it's low-hanging fruit. See, people are listening in and go, how's that low-hanging fruit infrastructure? It's hundreds of millions of dollars. No, you're not talking hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
You're talking some simple, very, very simple road safety initiatives that the truck drivers or the trucking associations can highlight.
And we're seeing every day. But, it'd be nice to think that somebody was listening and actually taking heed of what industry has to say. We feel at times we're getting large calluses on our foreheads from bashing our heads on brick walls.
Yeah, you're not alone. Can I ask this then, both of you and Mark, if I may? Do you believe our industry? Well, you've answered it, sorry, but do we get a fair hearing? And look, this is not picking on one form of government. Do we actually have the ability where we can knock on a minister's door and say we need to have a chat? We
can knock on the minister's door, but as to whether anything happens after that, that's the disappointing part. We do have great access to government and government departments, but a lot of the time that's the last consideration you're given until the next time you turn up and there's things like these effluent dump sites. I've been talking on this for 4 years. I've been president of the association for 4 years. My term's just about done, and here we are still talking about effluent dump sites. And Mark was part of a team that the LRTA took over to New Zealand to study the effluent dump sites in New Zealand, brought all of that information back, got it assembled into a document, and not being able to get anything to happen from there, and it's very frustrating.
And on the busiest livestock corridor in Australia.
And what is the
Warrego
busiest
Highway.
lot from the
Warrego
north to?
Highway.
The Warrego Highway,
okay.
west to east. The most head livestock moved in Australia, and we still can't get a site in there.
76% of the stock used in this southeast corner in the Port of Brisbane, Cannon Hill Abattoir, Tees at Beenleigh, JBS at Dinmore, KPC at Kilcoy, Stanbroke at Grantham,
Casino.
Casino meat
Texas.
all comes
Texas,
through,
Beef City, yep.
comes through the Warrego Highway down through the outskirts of Brisbane.
Would you be able to send me that report, please?
That's probably available on the LRTA website,
Oh, right, okay.
but we'll make sure that Matt gets that through to you, Senator.
And Matt will be appearing in Canberra anyway. So. Well, we'll be calling him whether he comes. I hope he will. I'm sure he will. Yeah.
Plan for supporting communications networks. We've just talked about that, we need to have a communications network in the rural area that's usable. Do away with black spots in the phone coverage and internet service and whatnot. I don't know anything about radio waves, but we're getting NBN towers put up everywhere. Don't the radio waves communicate to each other to put a phone tower up on top of a brand new NBN tower at the same time as you're building that?
I think...
I might be a bit too basic.
No, I think the Minister's looking at having multi-user access to those towers, because you're right, Telstra puts it up and Optus can't use it, or Optus puts it up and Telstra can't use it. It's just ridiculous. But the Minister's aware of that, and he is he's getting stuck into that.
Just in my area on the Sunshine Coast, there's 3, 4, 5 towers in a 10-kilometre radius of NBN towers, and yet I still have poor service. I can see from Noosa through to the tip of Moreton Island off my front veranda, but I still have poor mobile phone service, and the phone tower is just up a mile up the road on top of the hill.
And you'd know better than anybody that when you get further west, you have no coverage at all for miles.
Yes.
And you rely on the radio.
The good old stop, please.
Ian, can I come back to the concessional schemes?
Yes.
Tell me a bit more about them. What are they?
Concessional registration is probably our biggest problem as a commercial carrier. Farmers carting for hire on cheaper registration, cheaper fuel, they get cheaper insurance on their vehicles.
So they get cheaper fuel as well?
Yes.
I don't mind throwing the curveball out there. Look, we're all Aussies, and when all is said and done, we all want to go to work, we want to pay off our debts, we want our grandkids, our kids and our grandkids to have a magnificently rewarding life and make them as comfortable as possible. None of us are scared to roll up the sleeves and get into it. But how is it fair? See, I can't cop it. I'm talking to the old ex-truck driver here. There is no way known. I have no grudge that if farmers get cheaper registration because they're cutting. I don't have a problem with that. But what I really do have a problem with is then they start competing and taking my work.
Yes.
And I don't think that any fair dinkum Australian would see that as being fair. So, how rampant is it out there? No names don't factor all, but
every area has their primary producer registered commercial carrier, and the farming lobby is very strong, and most governments are not prepared to upset the farming lobby.
I've spent 15 years in the Senate on this committee doing the best I can for Australia's food producers. But there is not a fibre in my body that says it is fair for anyone to get a concessional or to get financial advantages and then compete in a market where the rest of the Australians, I don't care what industry they're in, are paying a heck of a lot more to have to do it. I just cannot cop that. Anyway, that's
I can only second those
no, this
thoughts.
is just wrong. It is absolutely wrong, and you're just given the bird to the majority of other Australians who don't enjoy those luxuries.
Well, can we just be clear though?
Yep.
If I could just further understand, it's my understanding that you get that farmers and graziers get a diesel fuel rebate for off-road. Most of their roads aren't sealed; they have to maintain them themselves. So
Yep.
on property movements, and then for moving their stock themselves. Are you suggesting that they are commercially competing with you by carrying other people's stock in their trucks
Yes.
and claiming a rebate?
Yes.
Oh.
And that would probably go, when you said they've got a tipper. So you guys being livestock and rural transport, and it's not just livestock, you're doing grain, you're doing fertiliser, I mean, they're your members too. So a farmer, and we'll say it as is, who is getting a concessional rebates on their fuel and their registration, could then go and cut their mate next door's fertiliser or their grain.
Yeah.
Where you can go do it too, but you're $12,500 worse off on your reg.
Yes, to start off with.
You see, this is what, it's
I'd-
hard for Aussies to smile,
So
we should all get
when
that
I used to
concession.
be an accountant for this industry, you would add back on-road and private use and all of those things. So I think we just need to be careful that we don't make, like, I appreciate that you're saying that they're all claiming it, but I would like to see that, I'll go away and do some homework and clarify that, because I don't think that's the...
All I can tell you is that one primary producer registered truck on the Sunshine Coast is busier every week than my 2 trucks are.
Yeah, but you don't know that on his form he's claiming the excise rebate.
I don't know whether he's claiming the fuel.
Yeah.
But he's definitely getting the primary producer registration.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's a hell of a big start. Even if he is paying the same amount for fuel as what I pay.
And let me tell you, rego is a very touchy subject,
Yes.
as we know.
Yes.
We start talking triple road trains, we're talking 18, 19 grand, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's right. All right.
Sorry. And with effluent dump sites, the transport department of each state, they put in rest areas, they put in breakdown areas for the road trains. Why is an effluent dump site so hard to put in compared to doing those sorts of things? So
I'll probably give you a narrow view of Western Australia. We've got a couple of road train areas, but let me tell you, some are in pretty poor condition. So don't feel alone.
At the end of it, it's not all up to government. Our own industry associations have been progressing several initiatives that we hope will improve productivity and fairness. For example, the LRTA's published a ramps, livestock loading ramp guideline that is now working into a national standard. We've trialled a user pay system unloading gantry where it's a frame that comes in beside your trailers for the driver to stand on, for the bottom and top deck, to be able to unload the stock off the trailer without being in physical contact with the stock, getting inside the crate. We're working with the supply chain to develop a code of practice for effluent management, but it's not happening quite as simple and as easy as it sounds, but we hope to get there. We all want a viable, safe and sustainable and efficient road transport sector. Our international competitiveness relies on it. On our agricultural supply chain, and therefore our quality of life in our rural communities depends on it as well. The LRTA and the national body, the LRTA, are open to exploring any mechanism that might help us achieve this outcome. Thank you, and Mark and I are happy to take questions. We've probably done that.
Tremendous, thanks Ian, thanks Mark. Now, one thing that I have had raised with me on a number of occasions, loosely, but it is conditions at sale yards. Do you want to? Is there a standard in Australia?
No.
Okay. Should I leave this one to? Or?
No. That's one of my pet hobby horses.
Okay.
I've got a big soapbox, a corner of soapboxes lined up at home that I like to stand on.
Well, look, Ian, share it with us then, because I think it's important, because it has been raised with me a couple of occasions. And my limited experience in this area is it all falls on deaf ears. No one gives a damn, and get the hell out of here. That's how it gets put to me. So
Yeah,
what do we need to do?
a lot of it is we up on the Sunshine Coast. Our sale yards are older style yards. One yard has 2,500 head of cattle go through it every second Monday. You get there after lunch with a load of cattle, and you could, probably the worst I've been is 3/4 of an hour in a line up to get to the ramp, and then another 3/4 of an hour to unload one deck of cattle, because they process the cattle as they come off the stock, off the truck. They plate mark them, they NLIS scan, they mouth them to see how old they are, sex them, and then send them in their right direction from there. Whereas that all should be happening further down the yard. We should just come in, back onto a ramp, unload, put them in a pen, and somebody takes the paperwork and they process them further down the line and we keep going. But
So your fatigue management hours aren't affected?
yep. And when you broach the subject with the agent, you get told to get out a bit earlier. Well, we're already getting out a bit earlier.
Look, I think that's a very important issue to raise, because we've heard it, particularly in the general area, you know, when the drivers are stuck waiting to load and unload facilities, not getting paid, many hours in the general transport industry for certain sectors are not getting paid. We've had open evidence where drivers have openly said here on the Hansard they don't book that time because it affects their fatigue management, where they're actually saying they're breaking the laws.
Yeah.
And the trouble is, it shouldn't come back. If there's an accident, it's going to come back on the driver, for crying out loud, and it needs to go further up the chain. You know, it's amazing if you start, and I'd be interested in, Mark, what you think here. You put the onus back on the client, it's amazing how quick you'll get unloaded.
Yeah.
Or loaded.
We as a basic thing, we don't have a great problem with fatigue management at these local sales, because it's a 12-hour operation. So we've got no real problems with that, but it's just the animal welfare and the I suppose inconvenience of being stuck in a line where you have to keep moving up. If you don't keep moving up, you get past.
Yeah. Oh, you certainly do, yeah.
So it's a...
They're council-operated facilities.
Some are council, some are agent-owned.
Yeah.
That's the hard part when they're council-owned and agent-run. Nobody wants to pick up the ball and give it a kick.
So, McDonald, do you have any further questions?
Yes, well, we've probably covered off a lot of it while you've been talking or during your presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you. I get feedback from operators who'd be members of yours, particularly around the fatigue management and the, you know, potentially being supposed to stop, you know, just out of their destination or.
Yes.
And so is the seeing machines and, you know, technology solutions, are they going to solve that, or, you know, what is the solution to be able to give some more flexibility back to the drivers?
That's a pretty hard one. Mark is probably a little bit more qualified, because I'm only a single operator.
Yeah.
We are currently trialling the C&I machine. We have a dozen units in now, been in since Christmas. The theory behind the technology looks good. Basically, you know, the logbook diary system is very outdated, forcing us to drive when we want to sleep and forcing us to sleep when we want to drive. So technology like the C&I machine has some pretty good looking future. Obviously that technology is going to be proven, in my opinion, to make sure that it is reliable and doing the job it says it's doing. But initially with fatigue, I mean, you know, we all know you can come back to work after a couple of weeks off and be fatigued in the first 2 hours of work sitting behind the wheel. So, you know, a work diary is not going to tell you to pull up at that point, whereas a C&I machine will give you an alert to say that you have a fatigue episode going on.
So you'd be, well, what I'd imagine is that you'd then be making recommendations to government to change the manual fatigue management systems to use, if the technology works, to use a technology-based one.
Yes.
And is there a trial going now that, that this is something that's got an end date?
Yeah.
Or
We're doing some work with QTA now and the university in Brisbane here. So we're involved in that. There's a half a dozen so companies involved in that. We're one of them.
And is government supportive of that kind of, more modern approach?
Good question. I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
I hope so.
Just think of the reductions you're going to get from NTI.
They think it's a good thing. Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
The other thing that truck operators talk to me about, we've already talked about the lack of suitable truck stops and amenities and whatnot along the road. But road conditions broadly have touched on narrow roads, unsealed roads. I just wanted to get it on Hansard, the Belliando, getting that flattened out.
That is one that I've raised, but the Belliando leading into Charters Towers is becoming a hell of a problem for the whole of the transport industry because it's so rough and uneven. And for people that don't know the road, it can be very challenging. It's challenging enough for people that do know the road.
Know the road, yes.
And there's lots of roads around the state that are like that, but the Belliando is one that stands out very, very strong.
So the Western councils have a process for going through and prioritising roadworks to get funding and getting grants from the state and federal government. But is that something that they consult with your association on and what you think the priority should be?
Well, they should do, but they don't really. We ask our members to nominate a road in their area that they think needs doing, and then our delegates work on a sort of a short list then to give to the department. But it's a hell of an ask to get everybody to either respond and then to respond with the...
I understand that, but I was just really impressed with the council's, joint approach to this, and it's something I'd suggest if you get into them because, they're the ones putting in the grant applications as well, so they'd probably appreciate your input.
Consultation with our industry is getting better. And there's still room for improvement.
Yeah, right, okay. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on? I mean, the fatigue management seems to be the driver hours seems to be the big one that everybody's trying to manage. Would be my takeaway.
Yeah, I as I say, I'm just a small bloke on the coast here. I run a general access vehicle, and I can run most of my work on a 160 kilometre work diary exemption, whereas Mark's outfit they operate over 3 states. So
fatigue's a big issue, definitely. Something we monitor and train and need to keep on top of all the time. Moving to things like BFM and AFM have been a benefit for us, definitely. Helps us manage that fatigue, gets us off the road at the right time of night.
Yeah. And what about better coordination between the states of regulations and...
Well, that's something that we're very concerned about, is that the NHVR is reviewing livestock loading schemes. Queensland has the best. We are the best.
Well, we are the best,
We are the
exactly.
best.
It's good to get that on Hansard as well.
The West Australians
because-
come up pretty close to us, but
Okay,
they're just not quite as good as us.
Our fatigue management's better than yours.
Yes, well,
I helped design it.
but we're very worried that the NHVR in their review will reduce us to the lowest common denominator instead of lifting the others up to a proven standard where our roads are still usable, our bridges are still erected. We're getting better productivity, and we're moving further for better with less, and that's got to be better, and bring the other states up to us. And there's other things in the NHVR, National Heavy Vehicle Law, that other states do better than us. Well, bring us up to their standard. Don't bring them down to our standard. Take us up. Pick the best out of all of these laws and use it wisely. We're here to earn a living, keep our families comfortable, and progress our country.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Ian. That's spot
Do
on.
it as a common, uniform, common cause for everybody.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. Thank
I'll
you,
hop
Ian.
off my soapbox.
No, we appreciate
let
that. Thank
you
you.
hop off
No,
beside
thanks for coming down, and we will hear from the national body in Canberra as well. And the livestock and rural transport associations will be invited to every state hearing. So, thank you so much, gentlemen. Travel safe.
you.
Thank
you. And we'll now call our officers for the department from the Queensland Department of Transport and Main Roads. I have to read a spiel here, don't I? Yeah, that's right.